In today's student interview, I got a chance to connect with Alex to learn exactly how he came from a drug addiction family to now making over $18,000 per month with his social media marketing agency, all within 55 days of starting up his agency. I got a chance to connect with Alex all the way in Colombia so that I can learn exactly how he was able to start his agency within a month and a half and scale it past 6 figures all within 55 days. I'm gonna learn exactly how he was able to get new clients, retain those clients, and all the struggles and obstacles that he had to go through to scale his agency. He has a really crazy, interesting story coming from a drug addicted family with his whole family going broke to now scaling his agency. So let's dive into this interview. All right, guys, I'm here with Alex in Colombia. He's been able to scale his agency to 18K in a single month within 55 days. So we're gonna dive in on exactly, what made him get started, how he's doing it, and we're gonna let Alex take it away. So Alex, how did you get started with your agency? What made you want to get in your agency? Take us back to how'd you get started?
Yeah, so basically was born in Michigan, grew up with money, and then my dad lost his job, went completely poor, was on food stamps, went into my fridge. There was, nothing in there besides like Diet Pepsi. So I went from having a ton of money to nothing, living in crap house, just the absolute gutter. So I always knew that I wanted to get back to having money and being able to do what I want, because being broke is not fun. And I always wanted to live that good life. So I was watching YouTube videos from the get, like maybe at 2006. I think YouTube started in 2005. And I would get the guru ads talking about making money online. And in high school, I would get my friends to invest in courses for Shopify and e-commerce. And I built a store that sold vitamin E oil that got to 30K per month, but then my payment processors actually messed up, or not messed up, they banned me. And then I figured another way out to get another payment processor. I was doing lawn care while in high school, and I remember it was like the summer. It was at 12 p.m. and I was already at 2K in sales. And I was like, dude, I'm getting rich while working. I'm quitting this job. I'm going to be able to travel the world and do whatever I want. And the actual ad got banned during the middle of the day. So I went from the 2K. I should have made like $6,000 that day. Not profit, but just revenue wise. And I was like, this is too much of a headache. And I'm not saying that Shopify and e-commerce is like a wrong way to go, but for me, learning SMMA and doing sales and actually like a marketing agency where we build websites, we run their ads, and creating value like that, instead of relying on drop shipping and payment processors, all of that stuff, I was like, that's going to be too much of a headache. Let me do SMMA, learn sales. So I graduated high school. I went to college because that was going to be my backup plan. I was going to become a nurse. I was going to make like 70, 80K a year. Right. And then I was going to reinvest into my entrepreneurship. I went to college for 2 weeks. I talked to the counselor and I said, I really don't even know if like I want to actually do this. And she said, then yeah, college is not for you. As soon as she said that, it was like a 5-minute conversation. I dropped out. I went to Western Michigan University. I went back home and I was like, all right, how am I going to make money? How am I going to have another? And I still was scared. I still had I wanted to have a plan B, which was a lawn care and landscaping business. So those same lawn care and landscaping companies that I worked for, I ended up calling my boss, my old boss, and saying, hey, I want to start a lawn care and landscaping business up. And he sold me 70 accounts at the start for I think $30,000, and I had no money. So I had to come up with a 2K down payment, gave him the 2K down payment. And for that year, I had one of my buddies come and live with me, and I paid him like $400 a week to cut grass, and we were working 12 hours a day. He was super underpaid.
And this was right after you graduated high school.
Yeah.
And you just dropped out of college.
Yeah.
So you started this. Got it.
Yeah.
What year was this?
Oh, I'm not good with the years. So if it was maybe 2017. Okay, 2017. And then I had the lawn care and landscaping business for 3-4 years. Okay. So I had the lawn care landscaping company. We grew that. But that whole year, I was super stressed out because I had no money. All of that money that was generated from the lawn accounts, I had to pay back that boss man. And I always would think that he's stiffing me on some of that money. Because in that business, account receivables is pretty shitty. You have to cut the lawn for 30 days. And then you invoice, and then if the invoice is through a check, you have to wait for the check too. So you're going to cut that. It's a long process to get paid. Cash flow is terrible in that industry, and you can ask anybody, like they're going to agree. So I'm doing that. I grew it to 8 employees. We're doing snow removal. I'm just like, fuck this. I hate the fucking lawn care and landscaping industry. I don't want to do landscaping shit because people look at you like you're a landscaper. It's super blue collar. And I've always been like a little computer nerd, but I had the physicality to do that type of work, so I was good at it. But I knew that in 10 years, I didn't want to be the fucking landscaping guy who owned a landscaping company. Nothing wrong with that. That's kind of my niche that I'm in right now, who I serve. But so I was like, all right, how am I going to get out of that? And then I started learning SMMA.
How did you hear about SMA?
Had to be Ty Lopez.
Ty Lopez.
Had to be the same thing for you.
Guy for me, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw Ty Lopez, SMMA. It was like another buzzword because it was like e-commerce, SMMA, Amazon FBA. And I would always, my attention was distributed through my lawn care landscaping business, SMMA, and then I would still think like, okay, I can make Shopify work. And that was not a good thing.
Right.
And then I just focused on the agency while I was figuring out how to sell the lawn care and landscaping company.
You're trying to get rid of it.
So yeah. I grew that to the $500,000. And then that year when I was looking to sell it, I stopped answering the phone. I went all in with the agency.
Why? And you wanted to go all in on the agency specifically, like why? What did you expect the agency was going to give you in return?
Yeah, so I wanted to make money from home. Make money from home and not do the hard physical labor because my back began to hurt. I was in the hospital one time where I bent down in my basement to grab a shirt, and then I went outside to my old girlfriend, and I said, I fucked up my back. Yeah. I went back to her house, we laid in bed, and I couldn't even get up. And this was 2 weeks before the beginning of the season, and I had to go out there and cut grass and do the landscaping. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like I was in the hospital, I was sitting like this. I could not lift my back up. They had to give me a bunch of drugs and I still was fucked up. I ended up getting out. They said it's going to be like 2 months until you recover.
You couldn't work.
I couldn't work, but I figured it the fuck out. I wasn't a little pussy. And in 2 weeks I was out there and I had my employees and everything. But then eventually I sold the company, then began the SMMA, and while doing the lawn care and landscaping, I always had headphones in. I would always listen to Tony Robbins, motivational stuff, self-improvement, stuff like that, but also the SMMA sales, like audiobooks. Mm-hmm. So when I began the SMMA, I had a bunch of cash from the lawn care and landscaping business, so I invested in a bunch of mentorships, and there was a bunch of mentorships that were not worth it as well. Mm-hmm. But then I went into Dan the Marketing Man's course, and you're Dan the Marketing Man's mentor, so it's all kind of, coming connected. Down. It's all connecting, right? Yeah. And it took me 3 weeks to get my first customer. I was in the realtor niche, and while I was doing that, so this is, yeah.
How did you get your first client?
Yeah, so I was cold calling, and I cold called, so I was in my house, and I had my employees from the lawn care and landscaping business, so I had one employee come in every day and work for the agency, and I was selling him that I was going to give him commission once we closed the first deal, which never happened. He was terrible at cold calling, but I respect him for trying. Shout out Brendan. And then, so I cold called for like 3 days. I would do like 300 dials. And I was like, fuck this. I have the money. I already had employees. I already developed that management mentality where I could just outsource. Mm-hmm. So I hired 5 virtual assistants like by day 4. And they were calling like 300 to 400 a day each one. Right. And my calendar was fucking booked. 7, 8 sales calls a day.
So in the beginning, I mean, you got into your SMA, and you're saying that you hired just a bunch of virtual assistants to do cold calling for you. Yeah. talk about like how did you learn to outsource? How did you like teach them to do cold calls, the scripting,
Yeah.
and how did that work for you? And then why did you go into the realtor niche in the beginning? If you had a lawn care landscaping business, why didn't you go straight into the landscaping niche? How did you come on? How did you find that?
Yeah, so I think the realtor niche, why did I do it? I think it was because the massive, what's it called? The TAM, the total adjustable market. There was like
there's a
2
lot.
million, 3 million in the United States. So I thought if there's so many of them, and then also that they're already adapt to buying leads, so purchasing leads. So when I come in and try to sell them leads, they've already been used to it. We don't have to. I don't have to sell them the idea of selling them leads. And then how did I figure out how to get virtual assistants? Well, when I was in Dan's course, Dan gave me all the scripts that I needed to use. And then he had a virtual assistant, and I was like, should I wait until I get my first client? And I was like, fuck that. Let me just get the virtual assistants, and then I'll figure it out later. But in my head, I was doing the math. Like, all right, I'm going to have to pay these people $500 a week or $1,000 a week. I'm going to have to close a client by this time. And then if I don't close a client by this time, I need to fire them. So I had all of that shit figured out in my head. It was not super random. And then I went to onlinejobs.ph to find all of those virtual assistants. But the thing is, I had 60 sales calls before I closed my first customer. And you guys probably watch my channel, like Alex is like the sales guru.
Right.
But like I was
took you
the
60
sales calls to do the first
See, at
deal.
that point, I was scared to take my first couple of calls.
Yeah.
So I just had someone else take all my sales calls
Yeah.
in the beginning. I didn't take sales calls in the beginning.
Exactly. So
So-
I was scared too, and I would be on the Zoom calls, and I would never put my camera on. I never put my camera on. So I'd be like in my basement, and I would be sitting up with my feet on my desk. My shirt would be off, and I would just try to sauce them on selling them.
Yeah.
One time my camera turned on. They said, "Oh yeah, you're pretty relaxed."
Oh man, that's good. Did you close that deal or no?
No, hell no.
Damn.
And I never followed up with any sales. I was trying to one call close them, and that's different from what we do now, which is like a whole different process. Lead, set call, discovery call, sales call. We're touching them on so many points before we actually close them. What we were doing is they would say, hey, do you want some of our referrals or leads? Let's book the appointment. So it would go virtual assistant, and then it would go sales call where I don't even show up on the fucking camera, and then I would never follow up. So that's probably the reason why I never closed any of those.
And so to touch up on Alex's system, like he was, at this mastermind event, Alex really dived deep into his system on how he's been able to scale his agency so quickly, within 55 days. Because to 18K in a single month in 55 days, that's about like a month and a half. Yeah. That is a really, really solid, time frame to scale your agency, and that's really possible for any of you guys out there who just starting out. Is that you guys just need to learn how to put systems in place. And so with Alex, he has a very dialed in system. I know that you messed around with it a ton, right? And that's normal, but seeing his system and him breaking it down, which I'm going to be implementing for my agency as well, I can see why Alex was able to scale his agency so quickly. Yeah. And another thing that I really like about Alex is that he doesn't think. Like, he's just an action taker. Like, he literally does not think. He sees and he does it, right? And if he knows that he needs something, he just goes and does it. He doesn't really think about the repercussions or how it's going to turn out or what the outcome might look like. He just goes and does it and then figures it out along the way. So can you kind of like share with the audience, that a little bit of that mindset? Where did you learn that, or has that always been inside of you? And then like what type of results have you gotten from that, like with that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it probably has to go back to where my mom was a drug addict. My mom was a super risk taker. Right. And, she grew up, she was an orphan, had like bad things done to her when she was younger. And she grew up, and when she was my mom, she passed away when I was 16. She was like kind of an entrepreneur as well. And she would take massive risk, and she wasn't successful, but she would always make me believe that I can do whatever I want. And she would always tell me that I could do big things when she was not fucked up. Right. But, and then her passing away, it was like, none of this shit is that serious, right? Like, yeah, I want to scale my agency as fast as possible, and I'll take the risk. But taking the risk is because of the level of seriousness that I'm taking it, and it's to an extent because I take it extremely serious. But the decisions every day, I'm like, it's not. It's if I'm thinking that it's super serious, I'm thinking more about it, and it's gonna be harder to take action. But when I do think about the things that I'm gonna do, I try to deep think and calculate it as much as possible, so that way it's not really that big of a risk. Like, for example, when I was hiring those virtual assistants, like, yeah, I didn't think about it. I was like, fuck it, let me go get the virtual assistants. But I calculated the actual math behind it, where if I don't do this in that amount of time, I'm going to lose this much money. But also, same thing with Jordan. I know Jordan is big on the motivational speeches, self-development, and I was ever since I was young. I don't know why, but maybe it was because I came from a nice area, went completely dead broke. Like, we had no money. We didn't have groceries. Like, I'm trying to say, like, I grew up and didn't have money to even eat. I had to go to school, and it was embarrassing, man.
Yeah.
It was super embarrassing. And I would tell people, they would ask me, like, what my dad did for work, and I would lie to them. I was super embarrassed, and I would say, yeah, we have money, and my dad had like this 2003 Honda Odyssey with like 350,000 miles, because he couldn't afford a nicer car. He couldn't afford a lease. He couldn't afford to finance a car. And I would just say, like, yeah, he has that car because, like, he's really frugal. But he was just broke as fuck, right? Yeah. And, I would go to school, and we didn't even have money for lunch money. I would have to be on the prepaid.
And,
Yeah.
and no, I hear you. Like, I was embarrassed too, growing up. Like, all my friends were like getting like cool cars. Like, I had a hand-me-down car from my family. So, I was always like kind of laughed at, and I was like, oh man, I wish I got like a cool car to be hang out with my friends and stuff. But my parents, they were, a middle-class family, and they were also they were pretty frugal as well, just because coming from America, immigrated, and just trying to figure out the ways and stuff like that. But I wanted to hear like what your thoughts on, like, how did like, for me, like, my mother passed recently, and that was like really,
no way, I didn't know that.
and that was like really hard on me. And like, the whole reason why I started my agency and like why I kept up with it was my mother was like my biggest why. I was like,
Oh yeah.
like, I'm gonna do this for her.
Damn, yeah.
So like, for you, like, your mother passing at such a young age, like, how did that affect you, your stress level, and like, did that motivate you to push even harder, or what, did you like take a step back and like, man, like, I gotta take some time? So how did that like play a role?
Yeah, so I think I handled it completely different than a lot of other people, because she really was not a mom to me. She was always drunk, always fucked up. So I never had a mom. And then when I got the call when I was in high school that, hey, your mom's in the hospital, it's not going to be, good. She's going to die. I freaked out that night. But then the next day I did take school seriously, and I wouldn't say that I'm like the smartest person, but I did take it serious and like would study a shit ton. And I knew that I had exams the next day. So I went to fucking school the next day. And I just was like, hey, shit happens. I never would have thought that, because you hear about people in like, high school, and like when you're younger, like their parents dying, and it's like, damn, like I never would have thought that would have happened. But so I went to school the next day, and yeah, I probably handled it, I would say, better than a lot of other people, because people would get in like, I never got depressed about it. But again, it wasn't like, your mom was your mom, right? And my mom wasn't even a mom.
Right, it wasn't that much of a connection as big.
No, like I would see her and stuff, but like she would always be fucked up.
Gotcha.
And but back to the point, what was I gonna say? It's yeah, like the next day in like school, like they were like, hey Alex, like, dude, why are you here? Why are you? You should be with your mom. Right. And so, well, you should be with your mom, but like, don't you have to have some grieving time? Right.
You were handling it pretty well.
Pretty well, and I think that I've always handled stress well. Like when shit happens bad, it's like, dude, we got to figure it out. Like us being depressed and everything is not going to help us right now, but going through that and getting that like emotional like scar will make you do bigger things and take more risk, because I had a relationship that ended that was 6 years. And like, I think that was amazing for my personal development,
Oh, for
because
sure,
it
for me
fucked
too.
it fucked me
It
up.
fucks you
It
up,
fucks
bro.
you
We were
up
talking
bad,
about that.
right?
Yeah.
It fucks you up bad. And then it's like, welcome to the club, because if you haven't had that experience before, you don't get it. Like, you don't understand like
No,
how bad it
you need your
hurts.
first heartbreak, bro.
Yeah, you need
to
the
like really get that fire.
Oh yeah, it's
Anytime
awesome.
you need motivation, bro, just
Oh,
go through a heartbreak and
it-
you'll start hitting the gym.
Seriously,
You'll
yeah.
take your business serious, bro. Your
Right.
personal development.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
so talk about going back into your agency. Like I
Yeah.
want like you've hired your virtual assistants. They started making cold calls. You
Yeah.
got your first client. What was like your biggest struggle with your agency? What would you say was your biggest problem with the agency stuff? And then how did you figure that out? Like,
Yeah.
what was your bottleneck?
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing was not knowing exactly what I needed to do, and that's what Jordan was just talking about. Like, everybody can do the same thing, 55 days, 18K. You guys all can do it, and you guys probably can do it faster, because some of you guys are probably smarter than I am. I'm not the smartest guy, but it's I did not have like an exact game plan of what I needed to do. And then when I did have a game plan, I was constantly thinking about how can I improve this, and what variables do I need to change to make it easier for a client to sign up with us.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest problem was not knowing what I needed to do, because I think if somebody came and spoke with us now, we could just say, hey, do this, this, and this, and this, and there wouldn't be as many problems.
Right.
But they have to trust you, so you have to find somebody that you actually trust and that's
willing to do
credible
it,
and willing to do it,
that too. Yeah.
and then actually take action. So yeah, that was probably the biggest problem. Yeah.
And so that was your biggest issue. And then how did you go from that to like scaling to 18K a month? Like what systems or what did you do to scale your agency? What do you think was like that
Yeah.
thing that you did to become where you're at right now?
Yeah. So for sure, if you guys are trying to one call close people, I mean, that's insane, right? If you actually look at it, like, since I was a business owner, I can really understand somebody fucking calling me up and saying, hey, do you have time later today on Zoom? And then I get on Zoom and then thinking that I'm going to give them $2,500 to do my marketing.
work like that.
It does not work like that. And if you guys are still doing that, I would stop doing it. So I always would think, like, how would I purchase the retainer that I sell? And it would be multiple steps. So how I scaled so fast, number one, was Frankie, my business partner. I would not be here without him. Both of us have really strong faith, and we think God has blessed us, even giving each other, becoming business partners with each
Right.
other. And then also fixing the sales process. And I don't know how I got the sales process. Remember, I was telling you yesterday, you were like, well, they were saying, like, how did you figure this out?
Right.
And it just happened. But I would always look at I would go and copy people's sales scripts. So I would pretend to be like a realtor and go into sales calls and record my screen and then write the script out. And then I'll go into other ones and then I would record it. And then I would figure out, okay, why are they asking this question here? Why are they saying this here?
You will hop on sales calls with other realtors, you're saying?
No, I would pretend to be a realtor
Okay.
and then go to another real estate agency
Uh-huh.
and
And see how they were
Sell
selling the
me.
realtors on. Got it.
how they would sell me. So I would try to like reverse engineer, and then I would try to copy it, and then it wouldn't work. And then like I would even like Hormozy I had this cracked Hormozy course that like I torrented. I probably shouldn't say that because you're the copyright guy. But yeah, and then I like scripted exactly what he said. But I felt like I was missing something. And I was like, all right, are people doing one call closes? Are they doing like two call closes? What is the exact sales process? And then I started looking up more B2B sales, because a B2C is more of a one call close, but a B2B is definitely a lengthier sales process. And I did find this one guy who's like from Czechoslovakia. He's a G. And he, I think, laid down the sales process more of like, all right, a lead comes in. You contact the lead, you set the discovery call, you do the discovery call, you build the trust with them, and then you do a sales call. And the discovery call is the most important call, because that's when they look at you like an expert and they understand that they have problems in their business in order to get to XYZ goal. So after the discovery call, that's where the biggest thing that allowed us to get to 18K per month was we constantly do discovery calls well.
Right, right.
And the reason that we do it well is because after the discovery call, they think to themselves, oh, I definitely have a problem. And if I want to get to X goal, we have to get these problems figured out. And they connected. We're on the same frequency. So if you're not on the same frequency with the prospect, you guys are not going to connect that well. And I think that I understand getting on the same frequency as somebody. Me and Jordan on the same frequency right now. So we're connected, right? But if I'm like on a sales, if you're on a different frequency, you're not going to connect. But by being on the same frequency after the call, they're going to have like a connection with you that they don't even understand, and they're going to like you.
Right. And so that's a really good point that Alex brought up, is that people don't work with businesses. People work with people. Yeah. And so you need to develop that connection. You need to develop that rapport and that relationship. And that's why Alex has multiple touch points before a deal is actually made. And so like for me, like I built my personal brand. People already see me, trust me, like me. They've seen my content. They already know what I do. So in a way, I mean, yes, I'm able to skip some of those steps. But if you're trying to do outbound and consistently have your, calendar booked out and closing new deals, like Alex is, you need to have multiple touch points. You need to be able to build that relationship. And the way you do that is, setting multiple calls. And on that discovery call, you're shifting your mindset from selling your services to how can I help this person? Because when you shift that mindset and you genuinely want to help somebody, you're going to be able to connect with that person a lot more, because now you're going to have a better understanding of what that person needs. And then from there, you can provide a service that will essentially be the solution for your prospect, and that makes the closing a lot easier. A lot of people who are just trying to sell on these calls, they're literally just saying, we offer Facebook ads. Hey, you need leads, we offer Facebook ads or Google ads. And you're gonna sound like every single other marketing agencies out there, right? You're just another company, another business to this prospect. But when you become a human and build that relationship and that connection and that rapport, it's gonna help you, increase your closing rate a lot more. So you can kind of dive in a little bit deeper more into that.
Yeah, and I would say, so what Jordan was saying too, to give an example of how to do that, it's like you're going to the bar and you just saw your friend from high school. Say you guys graduated from high school 2 years ago, and your buddy has a, pressure washing business. The type of discovery is hey man, so what even made you start a pressure washing business? Okay, and then do you guys have multiple crews, or are you out there doing it yourself? What services do you offer? Is it just pressure washing driveways? Do you guys do houses? How are you getting new clients? And this is the natural being curious. And you probably have it just naturally. When you hear somebody has a business, you're okay, how? You're just doing discovery, but some people don't have that naturally. So they have to kind of have a framework to figure out, to dive deep, to understand their business. But Tony Robbins, with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, says that somebody is going to listen to you not because you're right, but because they think that you understand them the most.
Yes.
Right? So that's key. And by doing the discovery the right way, and at the end of discovery, they're this guy understands my current situation way better than any other marketing agency. He understands where I want to go way better than any other company. Even if I tell them to jump off a cliff, they might think about it for a second, because they're he knows. If I say, yeah, you have to jump off this cliff to get to that 50K mark, he might trust me because I know his situation way better than anybody else.
Better than himself. And by asking the right questions. So on the discovery call, we ask questions. We don't product push. We ask questions to make them realize that they have a problem. We don't say hey, you don't have a website, so if you have a website, you're going to be able to get more leads. We say, hey, do you have a website? They say no. They're okay, so you don't have a website. Is it because you're too busy or you just don't want one? Then we keep going down that rabbit hole to make them realize that by not having a website, they're missing out on 10 to 15 leads every single month.
But then we don't just do the website. We do like, are you doing the same thing with Facebook ads? And we go down that rabbit hole with Google ads. And then we go down that rabbit hole. And then CRM and go down that rabbit hole. And by the time this discovery process is over, they're like, fuck, there's so many different things that I could have implemented or I could implement in order to get to my goal of 50K, 100K per month.
And so that's really good, and I think Alex has a really good analogy that I want you to share with them. Is that boat, right? How do they get from point A to their destination with this boat that has holes? I think it's a really good explanation when you share that with prospects. They have a much better understanding of like, I need Alex to get my boat from where I'm at to my $100,000 per month business or whatever. So kind of share with them how you explain that.
And this is just another gift from God that I was blessed with, because I'm getting these thoughts. I don't know how I'm getting these thoughts, right? So I needed to we need to make them understand, in order to get to where they want to go, they have to switch things up. So I tell them to imagine a lake, and on the side of the lake, there's your boat. And on the other side of the lake, there's your, dream revenue. That's where you want to take your business. Right now, you've been trying to get to your dream outcome for how long? And they'll tell me 6 months, 12 months. The reason that you're not there yet is because your boat, it has holes inside the boat. And whenever you try to get to that dream outcome, whenever you try to get across the lake to go to that other side, you're just sinking. And these holes are different ways to generate leads. So one of the holes will be your website. One of the holes will be the Google business profile. One of the holes will be Google ads. And in order to get to the other side, we have to fill those holes. And then after I ask these questions, they're like, that all makes sense. I have a bunch of holes in my business, and if I plug in these holes, I'll be able to get to the promised land. Now, there's different types of leads. Some people don't really care about getting to that promised land as much, but you can't judge it, and you just have to have high volume amount of leads to get those prospects that are like, yeah, I want to fucking get there. And I have a bunch of holes. Let's fix them so we can fucking get there. But also, you guys are probably thinking like, oh, so do you do websites? Do you do the Google business profile? Do you do Google ads? Do you do Facebook ads? Yes, we do. And if you don't know how to do it, figure it out. The reason why is because you're going to have more hooks inside the client. Now, by having more hooks inside the clients, it's harder for them to get away from you. So it's going to be easier to retain them. But the reason that I went this model is because Facebook ads were doing shit, and they were not printing money for my clients. They weren't saying, Alex, you're a god. You're making us so much money, like Jordan here with his clients, where they were like, dude, you just landed us a $150,000 deal. Yeah. So then I was like, all right, let me add all of these different ways to generate leads, and we just need one of those ways to generate a ton of leads to print money for them. Jordan, you went about it a different way, where your Google ads just made them a ton of money. So
it just worked. It just worked for me. Like I started off with Facebook ads, and I wasn't able to retain clients, so I was stuck in that like hamster wheel trying to chase after new clients. I'd sign a new client and losing that until I came across Google ads, and that kind of, I just never looked back from there, just because of the feedback that I got from clients and the ability to retain clients for that much longer. Yeah. Now I wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, let me jump in there. So we give them the analogy about the holes in the boats, but then after the discovery call, we send them a PDF that is congruent with the conversation that we had. So it gives them all of the different ways that we're going to fill the holes, fill the gaps in their marketing system, but then it also has copywriting on that PDF that talks about filling the holes. So the whole process, they're understanding this, and it's completely different from just like some, guru telling you how to sell, where you do a fucking one-call close on Zoom. It's a much more sophisticated and calculated and dialed approach that I think you guys should try to figure out on your own, or just implement the stuff that I have on my YouTube channel, and I think you'll be able to close a lot more clients.
So I think like building an agency to pass 10K per month is not easy, but I think it's very simple if you just follow the steps. You could literally, you could get a mentor and they'll show you the ropes. You could literally reverse engineer off somebody if you don't want to do a mentor. You can find someone just, like Alex, he would just hopping on calls with these other marketing agencies and figuring out what their script looked like and then making it his own and making it better, right?
Yeah, I got caught one time. Let me tell you about So one time I did this multiple times, and then I got caught because I wouldn't go on camera, And this agency scaled to like $1 million in 9 months.
Right.
And then he was asking me like, you know, what's your commission split with your broker? Like, I have no idea what the fuck the broker even was, but I was just like 80-10. He's like, well, who are you with? And I said, Keller Williams. He's like, I have clients from Keller Williams, and it's like a 60-40 or some shit like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's like different, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, what's your like realtor number, your MLS number? And I was like, I just paused my mic and then just left. And he recorded the playback and put it on his story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is funny, man. That is funny.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show, like, just be an action taker. If you don't know something, just go to someone that has the answers, right? And just figure it out. Sometimes you might have to bend the rules a little bit or whatever or whatnot.
Play in the gray area. That's what I like to say.
Play in the gray area, exactly. But at the end of the day, just be an action taker and do what you need to do to move the needle, right? To get the ball rolling. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It doesn't matter what you know, what you don't know. But as long as you're taking action, you're moving in the right direction. Now, I think, like I was saying, in the agency, it's not easy because there's a lot of, you know, personal things that you go through to build an agency, but it's simple. If you just follow the steps, if you just constantly show up and consistently take actions towards your goals, you will eventually get there. But for a lot of, you know, agency owners out there who deal with, you know, personal problems and stress, how do you deal with stress, and what do you do to deal with that and kind of overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, so I would say that I'm really good at dealing with stress now. Okay. But when I first started the lawn care landscaping business, it was horrible. Like, how would I deal with it? I would try to meditate. But now I have more faith with God, and God's going to give me anything that I want as long as I have 100% faith. And I don't really stress because I know whatever happens for a reason. And that's how I got over that ex-girl, because, hey, this is not what he wanted.
Right.
So if I have 100% faith, me being anxious and me thinking about, like, you know, why did this happen? Why did this happen? That's not me having 100% faith. And he's not going to give me the blessings to things out.
So unfortunately, my camera battery went too heated and the interview had to end a little bit early. But if you enjoyed my interview with Alex, drop a thumbs up and comment below if you want him to be back on more interviews so that we can learn exactly how he is continuing to scale his agency. Alex is a very, very smart guy, and he is definitely a doer, not a thinker. So if you enjoyed this type of content, let me know in the comment section below. I'm gonna get more agency owners on for interviews for my channel and try to get as much information and intel for you guys to help you grow your agency.